Hello everyone, this is Sarah Lebeck-Nagy, one of the nurse educators here at Einstein Medical Center Montgomery, and this presentation will focus on the blood bank procedure here at Einstein. Now here at Einstein, we follow regulatory requirements that are required by the Joint Commission to eliminate transfusion errors related to patient misidentification. Now, this process includes matching the blood or the blood component transfusion and checking it with the order, matching the patient to the blood or the blood component, and using a two-person verification process. One of those individuals needs to be the transfusionist, and the second person needs to be a RN or a qualified individual in order to check the blood product. Now, to contact the blood bank, you can call extension 1466, or on your Vocera, you can state Group Blood Bank. For blood bank specimens, you must draw a pink top tube, and the required information on that pink top tube is, according to the new AABB standards, is the patient's full name, the MR number, the date and the time that the specimen was drawn, and the initials and signature of whoever drew the specimen. If any of this information is missing, the specimen will be rejected, and the blood bank will call you and require a new specimen to be collected. The blood bank specimen is good for 3 days, and if the patient does not have a history of an ABO or an RH type in the entire network, a verification specimen is needed, and the second blood bank specimen needs to be drawn by a different nurse or phlebotomist at a separate time. The specimen can be physically delivered to a blood bank tech, and the blood bank is located on the first floor above the cafeteria to the left of the administration office, and you can also send the specimens via the pneumatic tube. And the tube station for the blood bank is 211. It takes about an hour to complete the testing on the specimens. If there's any delays, usually the blood bank will call the floor and notify the nurse to let them know that there is a delay, or if the patient has antibodies that they need to do further testing. If the patient does not, again, have a history of ABO or RH type, a verification specimen is needed, and the blood bank will usually order this test if it is needed. And again, the second specimen needs to be drawn by a different nurse or phlebotomist at a different time. The blood bank receives a transfusion order when it is ordered. When the units are ready, they will call the floor and notify the nurse that the blood products are ready. Before coming to pick it up, you need to make sure that everything is ready for the patient in the room. The patient needs to have assigned consent. There's two different types. One type is the blood transfusion consent, which is good for the entire length of the admission. And the second type is a surgical consent, which is only good for the day of the surgical procedure and 24 hours after the procedure. Now, another component of picking up a blood product is that you need to physically go to pick up the blood product. We can send blood products through the pneumatic tube to 4 West and ICU. That is the only units here. A request for blood products form needs to be brought to the blood bank with the patient's floor sticker attached. 1 unit for one single patient can be given at one time to one individual, unless in emergency situations or the OR. The blood bank tech and the person picking up the product will go over the patient's name, the MR number, the unit of the ABO RH type, the unit number, expiration date of the unit, and the compatibility. So that's your two-person verification process that needs to be implemented. This is the slip that will require the patient's sticker on it as well to be brought to the blood bank by an individual in person, unless in emergency situations or if it's for the OR. This is the blood bank transfusion record that will be attached to the blood bank product. So if you are on 4 West or ICU or the OR, when the blood is ready to be transfused and you want to use the pneumatic tube to acquire the blood product, you need to complete a request for blood products to be sent in the tube form and send it to the blood bank. And again, the tube number is 211. Once the form is received, the blood bank will fill out the lab portion and call the floor to let them know that it is being sent through the pneumatic tube. And once the blood is sent with the request form, and whoever takes the blood from the pneumatic tube needs to fill out the received portion of the form and send it back to the blood bank right away. This is just to make sure that it went to the correct station and that it was retrieved in a timely manner. And this is the separate form for the blood bank blood products to be sent in the tube. So once the unit is released, the transfusion needs to be started within 30 minutes. That's why it's important to make sure you have everything you need in the room and ready to go. The unit is not returned after 30 minutes to the blood bank. It must be quarantined and discarded, unfortunately. The OR, luckily, has their own refrigerator, so the time limit does not apply to them. In emergency situations, we can give uncross-matched blood. It's usually 2 units of O positive or O negative blood that can be issued out. We also have a extrangulation protocol, and the doctor must sign the extrangulation or uncross-matched blood form. It does not need to be signed prior to release of the units. During the transfusion, gloves must be worn every time when you touch the blood product. Once the unit gets to the patient, another 2-person verification process needs to be performed with 2 nurses, the patient's armband, transfusion slip, and the unit itself. The to be completed by transfusionist section of the transfusion slip needs to be checked off that it was performed. And the patient's vitals need to be taken and recorded on the transfusion slip prior to the start. When the transfusion starts, it is essential that the nurse should stay in the room for the first 15 minutes. This is most likely when a hemolytic transfusion will occur. After the first 15 minutes, the vitals need to be retaken again and recorded. And then the transfusion can only go on for 4 hours. If it is longer than 4 hours, then you need to stop the transfusion at the 4-hour mark. The transfusion slips go into the patient's chart to be scanned into the patient electronic records. Very important not to lose that slip. If a transfusion reaction is suspected, stop the transfusion immediately and call the doctor and blood bank. A transfusion reaction form needs to be filled out and delivered to the blood bank with a pink top tube, the first voided urine, the unit with everything attached, including the tubing, and the copy of the transfusion slip. It needs to be given in person, all of these products. The blood bank will perform a transfusion reaction workup to find out what kind of transfusion reaction actually occurred. And this is the form that we use here, the transfusion reaction form. Again, if there's any questions or concerns, feel free to call any of the nurse educators or the nurse educator department here at Einstein Medical Center Montgomery. And thank you.